Thank you for participating in this on-demand learning session sponsored by Student Affairs Planning, Assessment, and Research. We hope it gives you more insight into assessment in student affairs. This session is about analyzing and reporting data after implementing a focus group. This session will cover two areas of focus groups after they've been conducted. First, we'll look at options for data analysis. The second section will cover the process of reporting results. Refer to our other on-demand videos for information about the purposes, characteristics of focus groups, preparing for a focus group, and implementing focus groups. You should think about data collection and analysis before you get started to plan on how you're going to do it and how you're going to make meaning of what you have. If you're doing multiple focus groups, data analysis can even start after the first focus group. Once you've finished collecting the data, usually using an audio recorder, you may need to transcribe the data into a readable transcript. Overall, the purpose of your project should drive analysis. Are you looking for an overall view, specific ideas that can be themed or coded together, further understanding from quantitative results? Knowing what you want to know will help you determine how you will analyze the data. Qualitative analysis can be very different than quantitative analysis because you're working with words rather than numbers, and you're not using statistical formulas to create the results. It can take a longer period of time to analyze focus groups compared to quantitative analysis. Your perspectives and biases can come into play as you analyze what others have said and believe. It's important to acknowledge that, and it may be helpful to involve a variety of people in the analysis to get multiple perspectives. Data analysis from focus groups uses qualitative methods rather than statistical analysis. While there are many perspectives on how to approach qualitative data, for beginners, it may be easiest to code your data into themes, which basically means putting like responses together in categories. Sometimes those categories are already determined based on your research question and theoretical framework, while at other times you may be starting from scratch. You could be using a student development theory, a leadership model, or the institution's learning outcomes as a structure for analysis. The example on this slide shows the categories and examples for how students responded to the question, "What did you learn from your student employment?" The responses could be categorized using the institution's undergraduate learning outcomes, or the categories could be created inductively. In terms of communication, students talked about written and oral communication, including speaking in front of groups. Work-life skills included professionalism, work ethic, and decision-making. Students also reported learning how to work with others in groups and using teamwork. In terms of diversity, students said they learned about working with people different from themselves and understanding other cultures. As with most qualitative analysis, there are a few outliers that do not lend themselves to a category. In this case, the miscellaneous category included CPR and designing surveys. Using the example from the previous slide, you can see an example of how to record the findings by keeping track of the themes, the number of responses, and good quotes. The communication category had 27 responses. One student said, "Because my job entailed making presentations to potential students and their families, I learned oral communication skills." Work-life skills included 20 responses, with one example being, "This was my first office job, so I learned everything from dressing appropriately to how to talk to the department director." 17 students addressed working with others. One student responded, "I learned how to work as a team with my peers to accomplish a goal/complete a project." In terms of diversity, 12 students addressed that topic, describing their learning as, "I learned so much about a variety of cultures based on working with my peers and meeting the needs of our customers. I realized how sheltered I had been, and I have much broader understanding of other cultures. It motivated me to study abroad in Japan next semester." Finally, 2 responses were placed in the miscellaneous category, with one student saying, "I learned how to design a good survey and recognize poorly designed ones." As you begin the analysis, there could be responses that fall into multiple categories or maybe don't answer the question at all. You have to use your judgment about how to code your responses. It is helpful to have several people involved in that process to understand different perspectives and address implicit bias. Once you have your data analyzed, you want to share the results with others. Think about the purpose of your assessment and what you wanted to learn. Think about who your audience is: staff, students, faculty, parents, administrators, etc. They may have varying levels of knowledge about your topic, so you might prepare different reports for each audience type. That could include written reports, an executive summary, presentation, a word cloud, or an action planning document. You may also want to share the results and action plans back with your participants so they know their input is valued. Because a focus group data is words rather than numbers, reports can look very different and include quotes from respondents, as well as interpretation of the meaning of the responses. This slide illustrates two different ways you can report qualitative responses. On the left, you can see a word cloud to represent responses. The larger the font, the more often that word was recorded. The report on the right-hand side indicates the category, the number of responses, and individual quotes that illustrate the responses. Choose a reporting method that is appropriate for your audience and the message you want to convey. Here are the references I used for this presentation. These and other suggested resources can be found on the Student Affairs Planning, Assessment, and Research website. Thank you for participating in the Student Affairs Planning, Assessment, and Research On-Demand Learning Series. If you have any questions, please check out our website at sapar.tamu.edu, call us at 979-862-5624, or email us at sapar@tamu.edu. We would be happy to help.